Hey, we are live on Facebook and our Industry Connect YouTube channel. We're just going to wait for a little while to see who's going to come on before we get into it. This is an awesome topic tonight. It is what it takes, or what does it take, to be a software developer. So we'll just wait a little bit and I will just check that everything is live on our Facebook page. So just bear with me, everyone. Awesome, looks good. Fantastic. So, wonderful. We've got some people coming on right now. Hello to everyone that is joining us. It'd be great to see where you're joining us from. So we are going live using StreamYard, and in the comment section, there is a link, streamyard.com/Facebook. Now, if you are wanting to ask us any questions, because that's what we're here for too, this is a perfect opportunity. But what you have to do is go to that comment and then click on the streamyard.com/Facebook and give StreamYard permission so that I can see your question, okay? If you've done it before, you don't have to do it again. But please pop over there into the comments so that we can see your questions. So welcome everyone that is on live now. We are going to talk about what it takes to be a software developer, because sometimes some people might have a bit of a misconception as what that really looks like. And we'd like to bring some clarity to you tonight. And I'm going to welcome my awesome guest, Shannon Christie from MVP Studio. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Shannon.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here. So thanks for the invitation. Happy to spend a little bit of time talking about this, going over some of those details.
Awesome, fantastic. So those of you that do not know, now Shannon is the technology manager of MVP Studio Global. He is also part of our advice and interview sessions that we run for people that are interested in joining our program. So if you're going to jump on one of those advice and interview sessions, you most probably will see Shannon there. So let's get straight into it, Shannon, because there's a few things that we'd like to chat about. We had a little bit of chat before we came on live. So tell us, what does it take to be a software developer?
Okay, yeah. So in terms of some of the key parts to have in terms of becoming a software developer, I would say that one of the key parts for any kind of role, and software development doesn't necessarily change too much in that regard, I think, is having, of course, that passion and that drive. Of course, you need to have interest in the field and the industry that you're going to be heading into. You always do better with your career growth if you have that desire to want to go further with that. And that applies to all areas in terms of how much you're interested in learning more. Because, of course, learning and going through that process is something that you'll be doing all the time in software industry. So software development, I'm constantly having to learn. Even after 10 plus years, it's just something, it doesn't end. You're always having to think, oh, there's new technologies coming along, there's new ways of approaching problems and stuff like that. So you really want to have that goal and that desire that you love learning about how to solve these things, about learning these new technologies and such. And as part of what I was just saying then, having a desire to solve those problems, to come up with solutions. Because again, the whole role is about finding a way of solving a problem, that we can write software that takes care of some problem that we have in our business, in our life, or something like that, and being able to automate that and bring it into a case that we can easily manage it. So having some degree of creativity to be able to deal with those problems, having a bit of an idea on handling things that are a little bit more abstract and things that are a bit more logical and such like that. It's not saying that it has to be perfect. I know that some people feel a bit worried, a bit concerned, or I'm not sure if I'm logical enough or something like that. I wouldn't necessarily say that you have to be too concerned with that, but you do need to have that understanding of, how do I approach this problem in such a way that I can break it down into some parts that I can work with? How can I turn this into a condition and say, if this thing is the case, then and only then do I want to deal with this problem. So you need to think about life in a little bit of an unusual way. But I think once you have a lot of those parts underway in terms of that desire, you can pretty much make all the rest work. So I wouldn't really say at this stage that technical is my key focus. I would say having those parts would be the key part. If you have that desire, if you have that ability to understand something a little bit abstract, deal with something that's a bit logical and such like that, I think you'll be in a good position to be able to build up your technical skills and build up into the role further. So I would say that those would be the main things that I would say at this stage of what it takes to be a software developer.
Right, you have the open mind, the learner's mind continuously. Like you said, 10 or so years, you're still learning. So I don't think, I know quite a few software developers and they're always learning something new. So definitely having to have that open mind, that learner's mindset, because technology is always changing. The thing now in 2 years' time might be out the door. Everything's getting faster and new technologies are coming in to make things work and more efficiently and quicker and et cetera, et cetera. So awesome, fantastic. Hey, what would you say would be, because, different roles have different types of characters, people's kind of like characteristics, personalities. What would you say? I know I'm throwing this at you, Shannon. What would you say would be a software developer's type of personality?
Okay, all right. I feel like that there's what people are typically like when they're software developers, and in terms of what you necessarily have to be like, it doesn't have to be like that. I know a lot of people think of software developers as reserved, that they don't necessarily spend too much time talking and things like that, that they don't like to get involved into drawing attention to themselves and things like that. And I would say that in my experience, that is quite often true. But I do also want to say that if you're someone who is more outgoing, that's not actually a bad thing. That's not like, someone who likes to get involved in conversation and stuff can't be a software developer. The important part is still kind of like what I said before. What does it take? A desire to learn, a desire to solve problems, being able to deal with abstract things, being able to deal with concepts. As long as you love those things, it's kind of like, oh, good. But yes, you will find in your career when you're working through it that people tend to be a little bit more, they want to focus on their work. They don't necessarily want to get too big into conversation. But at the same time, it still has to have that degree of communication. You still need to be willing to communicate. You can't go lone wolf and just try and solve everything yourself. Of course, work is collaborative effort. We all need to work together. We need to be willing to have meetings and stuff like that. So I would say that a little bit quieter, a little bit less in terms of talking to people, but that still needs to be there, of course. So I think that more or less sums up.
Yeah. I just think it's really interesting. It was a good question, kind of like, because like you said, it was really good that you said, it doesn't mean just because you might be a people person, doesn't mean that stops you from being an awesome software developer. If that's your passion, if that's what you want to do. So thanks for that, Shannon. Give us just going down this kind of lane as, as a software developer, what would because I know there's a lot of people, they go have 3 years of degree and all this kind of stuff, and maybe even 2 years in diplomas, all that kind of stuff, and they learn everything, but they actually haven't had the insight into a software company. Okay, how it runs, what does it look like? So could you give us a little bit of a taste, paint a picture for us, okay? Yeah. Paint a picture for us. What a junior developer's kind of a day in the life of a junior developer would look like? What would they do? What would they deal with? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I will say that it does, as always, vary a little bit from company to company, but more or less, as might be expected in some regards, when it comes to the role and things like that, in terms of the tasks that you'll be working on, of course, they're not necessarily going to give you large-scale architecture to work with, because they need to get you used to how the whole thing works. So you're often going to be working on tasks that may be a little bit small to start with. something that's a bit easier for you to work around. And quite often you'll go through like an onboarding period as well as to kind of like that beginning stage. And that applies for kind of like any role that when you get into it, you need time to learn the tools and technologies. You need time to learn how they've structured the code base, how they run their processes in terms of work and collaboration and the team and things like that. And definitely that first initial period it varies, but maybe like a month or so, you'll be spending quite a bit of time just getting kind of like comfortable in your new role, learning how everything works. And of course, during that time, I definitely recommend that you pay attention to those processes, to pay attention to how that all works. Because when you're getting into a role, that you don't want to start like have a jarring experience where you're trying to go against how everything works there. So it's really important to pay attention to how did they do their code, what kind of conventions they have, and following along with that. So that you fit in quickly. So after kind of going through that onboarding period and things like that, you'll be dealing with some more tasks. Again, it would still be things that would be a bit smaller. They're not going to be so mission critical and stuff like that. Maybe taking care of some bugs and things like that, trying to understand how it works. And that would be your opportunity to learn more about how everything works. Of course, there would be, in some companies, spending a bit more time having to potentially work with someone else, or having kind of like a team lead or someone who's a bit senior to you, kind of guiding you through the process and kind of in a way working together with them. Again, it's kind of like them showing you the ropes, letting you have that opportunity to learn a bit, but in a way that's still kind of like guided. So I'm not necessarily saying that every company has this perfect onboarding process, because especially in Australia and New Zealand as well, a lot of the companies are too small to go through that too much. So it's not going to be hand holding the whole way. It's not going to be that easy a process like it was with a university or something like that, where someone's dedicated and they are paid to guide you. These are people who are trying to get their work and things done, and they need to be able to guide you, but they can't, of course, dedicate all their time to babysitting you. So you do need to be able to have the ability to look after yourself, to be able to go through, learn things, solve problems, search how you can do it, and not necessarily spend the whole time going to the seniors asking for assistance and stuff like that. So I think that gives a little bit of an idea of that beginning phase. So of course, you'd still be going through a lot of the usual things like sprints and planning and getting to hear about how it all works. But it's definitely going to be a bit more like training wheels on to start with, until you get a bit more comfortable, and bit by bit, they will give you bigger tasks to work on.
Yes. So yes, the onboarding and everything, like you said, and you know, especially here in New Zealand and Australia, with small to medium companies, they don't have the manpower to, like, you know, have someone sit beside you. So you've got to be very self-managed, be able to take responsibility, ask the questions when questions need to be asked, but also be able to find the solution prior to asking. Do a bit of research. Dig in.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, because, you know, it's always interesting to hear, you know, what basically the landscape would look like. And that's helpful for a lot of people, you know, because they might not have that opportunity to ask anybody that are in software companies. So just kind of like moving into, you know, with this whole software developer roles and jobs and everything, you're part of, like I said to everyone that's joining us or down here now, Shannon is part of the MVP Studio as a technology manager. He's also part of our advice and interview sessions at Industry Connect that we run with people that are interested in one of our programs. And so he's very involved with that side of that aspect as well. So he's very knowledgeable about what our software developer job ready program is. So Shannon, just tell us a bit about the software developer program and how that prepares people to go in and over into a software developer role. Before you start though, just so everyone knows, there's a 3-step process with our programs. So number one is that you join one of our job ready programs, and it lasts 6 weeks. Number two, after you've finished the job ready program, which is 6 weeks, you then move over to a learning enhanced internship, which is fully mentored with MVP Studio, who is where Shannon sits. And then after that, once you've reached a certain level in the internship, then you could be part of our Recruitment Alliance, GTIO. So just tell us a little bit, Shannon, about our the Software Developer Job Ready program and how that works to help people get into the IT market.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So of course, for some people who are coming from different backgrounds, maybe you don't necessarily have all the fundamentals that are necessary in terms of being able to get into the workplace and have the ability to start working on things and growing and building up the foundation that you have. So, of course, with MVP Studio, we partnered with Industry Connect. Because we see that the material that they cover, the tools and technologies and things like that, is kind of like as part of our partnership, talking about what's in demand in the industry and things like that, that they are teaching all the tools and technologies that we use, for example, in our internship. And it's also the same tools and technologies that are in demand in the different areas that we're working with in terms of what other employers are after as well. So it's really about giving you some of those kind of like foundation and fundamentals in terms of the Job Ready program, so that you can learn the different tools and technologies to have enough of a foundation that you can come over to the internship to be able to go the rest of the way. Because if you don't have some of those fundamentals, if you don't have some of those basics, it can be hard to be able to get any further. And that's definitely where we feel that anyone who's gone through the training with Industry Connect, that you have what's needed, that you can come over to the internship with us, and then you'll be able to kickstart everything and keep going from that point onward. So that's really a lot of what comes from that part. And then, of course, when you get into the internship, that's where you really get a lot more of the opportunity to learn how does it all work in the commercial environment for yourself. I mean, it's one thing to hear me tell you what it's like, but it's still about you need to experience that for yourself. I could try and explain it, but it's not really the same. You need to be there. You need to see what it's like. You need to feel what it's like getting involved in things. Of course, in the beginning, it can be a little bit, it can feel a little bit like you're nervous and things like that to get started. And it's by working through it that you start to feel more confident. It's by facing problems that you improve your experience. And that's the thing that really appeals to employers. That's kind of what they're after when they're looking for someone with experience. They're looking after someone who's faced problems. So the internship is really kind of like a safe place for you to go through that whole experience. And it really opens up a lot of opportunities, as kind of like what we mentioned earlier. A lot of businesses are kind of like small to medium. They don't really have the manpower, the funds and things like that to be able to have their own internship, to be able to go through their own training. So by getting that opportunity to do that before you start applying for the roles, with so many of those companies being too small to be able to do that themselves, you're putting yourself in a much better situation, because you've already gone through a lot of that. You've already learnt, you've already gone through some of those growing pains in a way, learning how it all fits together. So get that experience in the internship, face the problems, learn the process of solving them. In some ways is kind of like the really important part of the whole thing, because a solution to one problem, you may forget it in a few weeks or months if you don't necessarily have to apply it a lot, but you'll remember the process that you used to get there. And a lot of that is like the concepts and the fundamentals. You solve these problems, you learn some concept, you learn some idea. I can apply that to some other problem in the future, and as you go through that, you get more experienced. And you'll be in a better position in terms of your technical, in terms of your experience and such. So I think that kind of covers the technical part. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about some other parts. But first of all, Carla, do you have any things that have popped up into your mind that you'd like to ask?
Well, that was really well articulated, because I know with our program that I know there's a lot of languages right now. Everyone, I am not technical. Okay, I am not technical. So, but in our program we teach C#. Now there's so many languages out there, so many languages, and there's a reason why we teach C#, because people do ask about all these other languages, but there's a reason why we teach C#. And I'd like you to touch a little bit on that. I know it will be very brief, but just touch a little bit on that, Shannon, because I know you guys use C# in a lot of your projects.
Yeah. That was something that I was kind of thinking about mentioning as well, is that when you're getting started, it's a good idea to be a package in terms of the skills that you have. So there are a lot of different languages, a lot of different tools, but quite often some of them will be combined in certain ways, kind of like a tech stack, as we call it. So you'll find that if you learn Java and you learn C# and you learn this and you learn that, and you have some MySQL and different databases and everything else, that when you're applying for roles when you're junior, that they can feel a little bit confused about, well, what exactly are you? You know, you say you've learned all these different things. Do you really know them? So it can be a good idea to be more focused, a bit more specialized to start with, to be a actual complete package that makes sense. By kind of like what we said earlier, the tools and technologies that we work with in the internship are in demand in our regions, and that's the Microsoft technology stack. So we use C#, we use Microsoft SQL Server, we use JavaScript and a lot of this popular front-end technologies like React and such. And that is a common tech stack, and it's good to see those things paired together. It's quite often what people will be after in terms of the roles, and it's better to remain focused in the beginning to get started. And when you get to a higher level, sure, then you can learn more. If you do that as a junior, they might feel like, I'm not sure if you have enough experience in any one of them to do what's necessary. So it's a good idea to have that kind of focus, and that's why with the internship and with the training and things like that, we'll be focusing on what's popular and what's in demand.
Yeah, and just want to add there that with the software developer job ready program, what it does is it's preparing you to be a full stack developer, like Shannon's just said. You know, the Microsoft SQL, all these things that Shannon just said, is why we teach them in the job ready program, so you can apply them in the internship with MVP Studio. So I'm just going to have a look and see if there's any questions. I haven't popped over there. There's no questions. Is there any questions out there, anyone? There's a lot of people saying hello. There's no questions just yet, but I'm sure, I know that a lot of times, you know, a live finishes and you think, oh, I wish I asked that question. So we'll just keep an eye on the comments, and we'll get back to you if you're watching this in the replay, and we'll answer any questions that might pop up afterwards, after this live finishes. So thank you so much, Shannon, for just giving us a bit of insight into what it takes to be a software developer, and especially, like, you know, what is a normal daily life as a junior software developer look like, because that just helps people kind of like to visualize, okay, this is what I could possibly look like for me, and also sharing about the internship, and also, you know, the technologies that you guys have in your projects. So that's awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon, for your time. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're just going to call it a night. And if you've, like I said, if you've got any questions, if you're watching the replay, please ask the questions in the comments, and we'll keep an eye on that and answer them. Okay, so have a wonderful evening or morning or whenever you're watching this, everyone. Thanks so much again, Shannon, for joining us.
Yeah, all good. Happy to help out. So thanks for inviting me to be here. Thanks, everyone. Again, any questions and things like that, we can go through that potentially later. All right. Thanks, Carla.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.